2023, Iran unveiled a missile they claim reaches Tel Aviv in 30 seconds. They call it the Fata 2, a hypersonic glide vehicle flying at Mach 15 with a warhead heavy enough to flatten a city block. Western analysts are not convinced it works the way Tehran says it does. But the claim alone has forced Israel to rush a missile interceptor that does not exist yet. What makes this threat so dangerous is not just the speed. It is the possibility that Iran has found a hole in the most advanced missile shield on Earth. Iran's missile program has always been a conversation about distance and survival. For decades, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has built an arsenal of ballistic weapons that can reach every corner of the Middle East. The Shahab 3 family, the Ahmad, the Khorram Shah, each one represents a step forward in range, accuracy, and payload. But none of them carried the label that makes defense planners wake up in the middle of the night. None of them were called hypersonic. That changed on a November morning in 2023. At an exhibition staged by the IRGC Aerospace Force, Iran pulled back the curtain on a weapon it called the Fata 2. The name means conqueror in Persian, and the symbolism is not subtle. Iranian state media described it as a hypersonic glide vehicle with a range of 1,400 kilometers and a terminal velocity of Mach 15. That is roughly 18,000 kilometers per hour. At that speed, the 1,600-kilometer flight path from western Iran to Tel Aviv would take approximately 5 to 6 minutes of sustained travel. The 30 seconds framing that has circulated in headlines is sensationalized. Iranian sources themselves have cited closer to 400 seconds for the full engagement timeline. The Fata 2 is not Iran's first attempt at this category of weapon. 7 months earlier, in June 2023, the IRGC unveiled the Fata 1. That missile used a 2-stage propulsion system, a solid fuel booster, and a liquid fuel second stage with thrust vector control. Iran claimed it could maneuver inside and outside the atmosphere, slip past interceptors, and deliver a 350 to 450 kilogram warhead with precision. Western analysts looked at the design and saw something different. Fabian Hinz, a research fellow at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, assessed that the Fata 1 was not a true hypersonic glide vehicle at all. It was a medium-range ballistic missile with a maneuverable re-entry vehicle, a MARV, capable of terminal phase adjustments, but not the sustained, low-altitude glide that defines a genuine HGV. The distinction matters. A traditional ballistic missile follows a predictable arc. It climbs, it coasts, it descends. Interceptors like Israel's Arrow 3 are designed to meet that arc in space, where the warhead is a cold, bright dot against a black background. A true hypersonic glide vehicle breaks that script. It separates from its booster high above the Earth, then drops into the upper atmosphere and skips along at Mach 15 like a stone across a pond. It can pull lateral maneuvers. It can change altitude. It does not follow the math that interceptors were built to solve. Iran says the Fata 2 is that weapon. Western experts are skeptical. They point to the gap between a prototype at an exhibition and a combat-ready system tested under operational conditions. They note that true HGV technology requires materials and guidance systems that very few nations have mastered. China fields the DF-17, Russia deploys the Avangard. The United States is still refining its own programs. For Iran to jump into that club with an indigenous design would represent a leap that strains credulity. But credibility is not the only currency that matters in this game. The claim itself has already achieved an effect. Israel's defense posture, its procurement priorities, and its strategic partnerships are all reacting to the possibility that this weapon is real, or real enough. In a deterrence equation, perception can be as powerful as performance. If your adversary believes you hold a missile that can punch through their shield, they must spend money, shift forces, and rethink assumptions whether the missile works perfectly or not. That is exactly what is happening now. To understand why the Fata 2 frightens defense planners, you have to look at what a hypersonic glide vehicle actually does. A conventional ballistic missile is a physics problem with one solution. Once the booster burns out, the warhead is a projectile on a fixed path. Yes, it moves incredibly fast. Yes, it is hard to hit. But its trajectory is governed by gravity and initial velocity, which means it can be tracked, predicted, and intercepted by a system with enough radar coverage and the right intercept geometry. That is the entire theory behind Israel's Arrow program. You find the warhead early, you compute where it will be, and you throw a smaller, faster projectile into its path. A hypersonic glide vehicle breaks that theory. After separation from its booster, an HEV dives back into the atmosphere and uses the air itself as a surface to generate lift. It is not coasting, it is flying. And because it is flying, it can turn, it can bank, it can pull maneuvers that bleed speed but create lateral displacement. The kind of displacement that makes an interceptor's targeting solution go stale in the final seconds before impact. Iran says the Fata 2 operates in exactly this regime. The claimed specifications are sobering. Mach 15 in the terminal phase, a range of 1,400 to 1,500 kilometers, a warhead mass between 350 and 450 kilograms, and most critically, a road-mobile transporter erector launcher platform that allows the system to hide in plain sight across Iran's vast interior, roll out onto a highway or a remote desert pad, fire, and relocate before any retaliatory strike can arrive. The IRGC has spent years building underground missile cities, vast subterranean complexes tunneled into mountains where launchers and fuel stores sit beyond the reach of conventional airstrikes. If the Fata 2 is deployed from those facilities, it is not just fast, it is also survivable. But here is where the engineering gets complicated. At Mach 15, the air around the vehicle becomes a plasma. Heat-shielding materials must survive temperatures that would melt aluminum in seconds. Guidance systems must operate through a sheath of ionized gas that can block GPS signals and blind optical sensors. Aerodynamic control surfaces must respond with precision at speeds where the smallest miscalculation converts a glide into a tumble. These are not theoretical problems. They are the exact barriers that have slowed American, Russian, and Chinese hypersonic programs for decades. Iran claims to have solved them. Western analysts are not so sure. The War Zone and several defense publications have noted that the Fata 1's design, a MARV with a small, solid propellant motor and thrust vector control, is clever but limited. It can maneuver but only in the final phase of descent. It cannot sustain the flat, skipping trajectory of a true glide vehicle. The Fata 2, if it genuinely shifts to an HGV design, would represent a qualitative step forward. But the step from a prototype on a showroom floor to a weapon that can reliably hit a target under combat conditions is one that many nations have tried and failed to make. The speed numbers deserve a closer look. Mach 15 is approximately 5.1 kilometers per second. A missile traveling at that velocity across the roughly 1,600 kilometer distance from Iran's western border to Tel Aviv would need a little over 5 minutes of pure flight time at that sustained speed. In reality, the ascent phase is slower, the glide phase is faster, and the terminal dive bleeds speed as the vehicle maneuvers. A total flight time in the range of 6 to 7 minutes is a more realistic baseline than the headline 30 seconds. That number appears to be compressed sensationalism. Iranian sources have themselves cited engagement timelines closer to 400 seconds. Even at 6 minutes, the timeline is brutal. Israel's warning network must detect the launch, classify the trajectory, cue interceptors, and achieve an exo-atmospheric kill, all before the warhead reaches Israeli airspace. That sequence is already tight against conventional ballistic missiles. Against a maneuvering glide vehicle, it becomes a problem that current interceptors were not designed to solve. Israel's missile defense architecture is the most layered and combat-tested system on the planet. At the bottom tier sits Iron Dome. It is built for rockets, artillery, and short-range missiles, weapons that fly low and slow within roughly 70 kilometers of the border. Iron Dome has intercepted thousands of projectiles since it entered service, and its success rate against single targets is close to 90%. But it is not designed for ballistic re-entry vehicles descending from space at Mach 15. Above Iron Dome sits David's Sling. Developed jointly with the United States, David's Sling handles medium-range threats, cruise missiles, drones, and ballistic missiles with ranges up to 300 kilometers. It uses the Stunner Interceptor, a two-stage hit-to-kill vehicle with its own radar seeker. David's sling was upgraded shortly before the current conflict cycle, with improvements to its radar discrimination and engagement software. But its envelope is still atmospheric. It is not built to chase a glide vehicle that spends most of its flight in the upper atmosphere or diving back down at angles that compress the engagement window to seconds. The top tier is Arrow. Arrow 2 handles ballistic missiles inside the atmosphere. Arrow 3 handles them outside. Arrow 3 is the crown jewel. It is an exo-atmospheric interceptor that carries its own sensor and can engage warheads hundreds of kilometers above the Earth, long before they begin their terminal descent. It has been tested against complex targets, sold to Germany in a €4 billion deal, and integrated with American early warning satellites. If a conventional ballistic missile leaves Iran, Arrow 3 is the system built to kill it in space. But Arrow 3 was designed for predictable arcs. The interceptor computes an intercept point based on the warhead's trajectory. If the warhead is gliding and maneuvering, that computation becomes a guess that must be refreshed constantly. The interceptor must carry enough fuel to correct its own path in real time, and it must survive the same plasma and thermal stresses that the glide vehicle itself faces. These are not minor software updates. They are fundamental hardware and aerodynamic challenges. That is why Israel is racing to field Arrow 4. Arrow 4 is the first Western interceptor specifically designed to engage hypersonic glide vehicles and maneuvering warheads. It is being developed jointly by Israel and the United States, with Israel Aerospace Industries and Boeing leading the engineering. According to IAI CEO Boaz Levy, the system is nearing operational readiness and will enter live trials in mid-2026. The design combines advanced agility, AI-enhanced targeting to discriminate decoys from warheads, in an interceptor that can maneuver in the same flight regime as the threats it is meant to kill. The timeline is tight. Iran has already claimed to use Fatah family missiles in combat. During the October 2024 strikes on Israel, researchers from the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies identified debris consistent with Fatah 1 components. Iran claimed hypersonic missile launches again during the June 2025 conflict and in the 2026 operations. The footage and claims from early 2026 remain contested. Some social media clips were flagged as AI generated by detection platforms, and independent verification has been limited. But the claims are doing their job regardless. Every time Iran announces a hypersonic strike, Israel must treat the threat as real until proven otherwise. That means firing expensive interceptors, scrambling fighter jets, and activating civil defense networks. It means wearing down the very system that Arrow 4 is meant to reinforce. And here is the cruelest math in missile defense. Interceptors cost more than the missiles they shoot down. A saturation attack with cheap ballistic missiles can exhaust an expensive shield. If some of those missiles are hypersonic and demand even more sophisticated interceptors, the cost asymmetry becomes staggering. The United States is not standing on the sidelines. Aegis destroyers in the Eastern Mediterranean carry the SM-6 interceptor, which has a limited capability against maneuvering targets at the edge of the atmosphere. But the SM-6 was designed primarily for cruise missiles and aircraft. Against a dedicated hypersonic glide vehicle, its effectiveness is uncertain. The U.S. Navy has spent billions on hypersonic defense research, yet no American system has intercepted a true HGV in combat. Israel is building the answer, but it is not ready yet. The Fatah 2 is not just an Iranian missile, it is a symptom of a larger shift in how nations threaten each other from a distance. Russia fields the Avangard. China fields the DF-17 and is testing even more advanced variants. The United States is chasing its own programs under the Navy's Conventional Prompt Strike and the Army's long-range hypersonic weapon. Hypersonic technology is proliferating faster than the defense is meant to stop it, and Iran has apparently decided it wants a seat at that table. Whether it has earned that seat is the open question. The evidence for Iranian hypersonic combat use is fragmentary. Debris analysis from 2024 suggests Fatah 1 components may have been present in strikes on Israel, but Fatah 1 is not a true HGV. It is a maneuverable re-entry vehicle with limited exo-atmospheric agility. If Iran is now deploying the Fatah 2 with a genuine glide vehicle, the threat escalates qualitatively. The difference between an MARV that can wiggle in the final seconds and an HGV that can skip and bank across hundreds of kilometers is the difference between a hard target and a nearly impossible one. Israel's response tells us what the defense establishment believes. Arrow 4 is not a speculative science project. It is a crash program with American funding, Israeli engineering, and a deployment date measured in months rather than years. Germany's €4 billion purchase of Arrow 3 already demonstrated that Israeli missile defense has export value. Arrow 4, if it works, becomes the first Western system that can credibly advertise hypersonic kill capability. That is a strategic asset worth more than the missile itself. The broader lesson is about perception and posture. Iran does not need a perfect hypersonic missile to change the region's security calculus. It needs a credible one, a weapon that flies fast enough, maneuvers enough, and survives launch often enough to force Israel and the United States to treat every incoming threat as potentially unstoppable. That uncertainty drives spending, shifts doctrine, and creates political pressure to act before the threat matures. It is the same logic that governed nuclear deterrence during the Cold War. You did not need to fire the weapon. You only needed your adversary to believe you could. The Fatah, too, may or may not be the superweapon its name implies, but the fear it has created is already reshaping defenses, budgets, and alliances across the Middle East. Arrow 4 is coming, Iran's underground missile cities are expanding, and the race between the missile and the interceptor has only just begun. The Fatah 2 may or may not be the superweapon Iran claims, but the fear it created has already reshaped the region's defenses. Somewhere inside a classified hangar, there may already be an aircraft that can reach any city on Earth in under 90 minutes, drop a strike from the edge of space, and land back on a runway before the enemy even confirms what hit them. No government has officially acknowledged it. No journalist has photographed it. And yet China and Iran are restructuring their entire air defense doctrine around the possibility that it's real. That's not speculation dressed up as news. That's the logical conclusion of a pattern that Skunkworks has been running for decades, and it's a pattern worth paying close attention to. What we're talking about is a program that circulated in defense analyst circles under the name Phantom Wing, a black project allegedly developed inside Lockheed's most secretive division, built to operate at the boundary where atmosphere ends and orbit begins, and designed to strike from a domain that no adversary currently has any answer for. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this aircraft, if it exists, doesn't just change the speed of warfare, it changes the entire math adversaries use when they think about confronting the United States. We're going to cover where this program allegedly came from, how orbital strike actually works, why neither China nor Iran can stop it, and what's real versus what's still in the rumor layer. Let's get into it. The SR-71 Blackbird was officially retired in 1998. For 25 years, it held the record as the fastest air-breathing aircraft ever flown, capable of outrunning surface-to-air missiles simply by accelerating away from them. When the Air Force stood those airframes down, the public story was that satellites had made high-speed reconnaissance redundant, cheaper, safer, no pilot at risk. Lockheed accepted that narrative publicly and kept working privately. That's not a conspiracy framing. That's just what Skunkworks does. The division was built by Kelly Johnson in the 1940s specifically to work outside normal bureaucratic visibility, and every major platform it's produced followed the same arc. Something gets developed in secret, flies operationally for years, and only surfaces publicly when the program has moved far enough along that disclosure, no longer compromises it. The F-117 Nighthawk is the cleanest example. It flew its first operational mission years before the Pentagon acknowledged the aircraft existed. Neighbors near Tonopah Test Range in Nevada were seeing a delta-shaped aircraft in the sky throughout the early 1980s. The official confirmation didn't come until 1988. By that point, the aircraft had already been combat-ready for years. The B-2 Spirit followed the same pattern. The SR-72 followed it too, except in that case, Lockheed themselves broke the silence. In 2013, they published a concept article in Aviation Week describing a hypersonic successor to the Blackbird, targeting Mach 6, built around a combined cycle engine that could handle both subsonic and scramjet regime flight. The reason they disclosed it wasn't because the program was new. It was because the underlying propulsion technology had matured enough that keeping it completely dark was no longer the point. What matters about the SR-72 disclosure is what it implies. Lockheed went public with a Mach 6 reconnaissance and strike aircraft in 2013, which means the development timeline for that system stretches back well before that. And since 2013, Skunk Works has gone almost completely quiet on where that program stands today. That silence is meaningful. The phantom wing concept, as it's circulated among defense analysts and in patent filings tied to advanced propulsion and thermal protection systems, isn't described as a faster version of the SR-72. It's described as a categorically different kind of aircraft, not a hypersonic jet that flies through the upper atmosphere at high speed. Something that climbs above the atmosphere entirely, uses low orbital mechanics to cover distance, and then descends on a target from above at hypersonic velocity during re-entry. That's a different machine. It operates in a different domain, and the defenses that exist to stop conventional aircraft, or even conventional hypersonic missiles, weren't built with this flight profile in mind. To understand why that matters so much, you need to understand what orbital strike actually means mechanically, and why the physics of it are so difficult to defend against. Think about a standard strike mission. An aircraft takes off, flies through the atmosphere at some altitude, crosses into hostile airspace, releases a weapon, and exits. The entire flight path stays inside the same layer of air that weather systems move through. That's the domain every air defense network on Earth is designed to cover. Orbital strike works on completely different geometry. The aircraft climbs steeply after takeoff, burns through the upper atmosphere, and crosses into the region where air is too thin to generate conventional lift. At that altitude, the curvature of the Earth itself becomes the flight path. The aircraft isn't flying over the planet so much as it's arcing around it, using near-orbital mechanics to cover thousands of miles in a fraction of the time any conventional aircraft could manage. Then it pitches down, bleeds velocity through re-entry, and descends on the target from almost directly above. That descent profile is where the 90-minute global reach number comes from. At hypersonic re-entry speeds, the distance between a launch point in the continental United States and a target on the other side of the world stops being measured in hours. It's measured in the time it takes to arc through low orbit and come back down. The physics behind this aren't theoretical. China's DFZF hypersonic glide vehicle uses a related principle. Boost a warhead to extreme altitude and velocity, then let it glide and maneuver during descent rather than following a ballistic arc. The phantom wing concept, as described by analysts tracking the program, takes that same logic and applies it to a reusable crewed or semi-crewed platform. Not a missile you fire once. A vehicle that returns to base, gets serviced, and flies again. Getting there requires solving one of the hardest problems in aerospace engineering: transitioning an aircraft from conventional turbine flight at low speed through the transonic and supersonic regimes all the way to Mach 6 and beyond demands an engine that can function across that entire range without stalling, melting, or losing thrust at the worst possible moment. Scramjet engines only ignite efficiently above roughly Mach 4, which means the propulsion system has to bridge that gap. A combined cycle engine starts as a turbine, accelerates the aircraft to the speed where scramjet combustion becomes viable, then transitions cleanly to hypersonic mode. Lockheed's work on this problem goes back years, and the SR-72 program was built around making that transition reliable enough to be operational rather than experimental. Once the aircraft is above the atmosphere and descending, something interesting happens with stealth. At the speeds involved during re-entry, friction with the upper atmosphere generates a plasma sheath around the airframe. That layer of ionized gas absorbs radar energy, rather than reflecting it back to a ground station. Conventional stealth coatings work by shaping the aircraft to scatter radar returns. The plasma effect works by swallowing the signal entirely. The aircraft is, in practical terms, invisible to ground-based radar during the exact phase of flight when it's most dangerous. The X-37B program adds another layer to this. The Air Force's unmanned spaceplane has been flying classified orbital missions for years, with individual sorties lasting many months. The official explanation covers technology demonstration in a general sense. But several defense analysts have noted that the vehicle's flight profile, its re-entry characteristics, and the thermal protection systems it uses are all directly applicable to a crewed or strike-capable successor. Whether the X-37B is a direct ancestor of something like the Phantom Wing, or simply a parallel program solving overlapping problems, the technology it's validating maps cleanly onto what an orbital strike aircraft would need to survive and function. That gets at why China and Iran aren't just watching this program with curiosity. They're watching it with urgency, because the defense gap it creates isn't something either country currently has any real answer to. China's most capable ground-based air defense network is built around systems like the HQ-9 and its naval equivalents. These are serious, modern platforms. They can engage targets at long range, they're mobile, and they're designed to handle multiple threats simultaneously. Against a conventional strike package, they'd cause real problems. The word conventional is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Every air defense system ever fielded is fundamentally a solution to a geometry problem. A radar acquisition system scans a defined volume of airspace, detects a target moving through it, hands off tracking data to a fire control system, and that system calculates an intercept trajectory and launches. The whole chain depends on one assumption, that the threat is coming from a direction and altitude the radar was designed to watch, with enough time in the engagement envelope to actually intercept it. An orbital strike aircraft breaks every variable in that chain at once. The descent profile we covered earlier means the threat arrives from almost directly overhead, not from the horizon where most radar apertures are optimized to look. The angle alone creates a detection problem that no software patch fixes, because it's baked into the physical orientation of the antenna arrays. To cover orbital re-entry angles, you'd need a fundamentally different sensor architecture pointed at the sky rather than the horizon, networked with fire control systems fast enough to generate an intercept solution in an extremely compressed window. That window is roughly 90 seconds or less from initial detection to impact, assuming the radar can acquire the target at all through the plasma sheath effect. 90 seconds is not enough time for any currently fielded intercept system to run a full engagement sequence against a maneuvering hypersonic vehicle descending from near orbital altitude. The missile has to be in the air before the geometry becomes workable, and you can't do that if you don't know the target is coming. Iran's situation is considerably more exposed. Their air defense inventory leans heavily on Russian origin systems, some of which date back decades. These aren't platforms designed to engage targets moving at hypersonic speeds under any geometry, let alone the near-vertical descent profile orbital strike produces. During the strikes attributed to Israel in recent years, Iranian systems struggled to consistently engage much slower, much lower-flying threats. The gap between what they operate and what an orbital strike aircraft represents isn't a gap you close with training or tactics. There's a psychological layer here too, and it matters as much as the technical one. Conventional deterrence works because both sides can see each other's capabilities developing in real time. Satellites track airfield construction, analysts count aircraft tail numbers, intelligence services monitor production rates. That visibility allows adversaries to calibrate their posture. They can assess the threat, build a response, and communicate that response as a deterrent of their own. An aircraft that can loiter in orbit for extended periods and descend without warning removes that visibility entirely. There's no ingress track to detect, no tanker support to monitor, no pre-flight activity to tip off intelligence collection. The first indication that a strike is happening could be the strike itself. Ballistic missiles follow a predictable arc from launch to impact, and that predictability is actually one of their weaknesses from a deterrent standpoint. Terminal defense systems have known intercept geometries to work with. A vehicle that maneuvers during descent on a profile that originates above the atmosphere doesn't give interceptors a predictable arc to solve for. That's not a marginal improvement in survivability. That's operating in a domain where the intercept math doesn't currently exist. So let's be straight about where the line sits between confirmed and alleged, because they're not the same thing, and collapsing them doesn't serve anyone. What's confirmed, the SR-72 program is real, Lockheed said so publicly. Skunk Works operates on black budget funding that's documented in congressional appropriations history. The X-37B is flying right now, somewhere above your head on a mission the Air Force hasn't fully explained. The The physics of orbital re-entry and plasma stealth aren't classified. They're published aerospace science. Those things are facts. The Phantom Wing name isn't. The specific capability claims aren't. What circulates in defense analyst communities is a composite assembled from patent filings on advanced thermal protection and combined cycle propulsion, from signals intelligence reporting that's never been officially sourced, and from the kind of inference that happens when people who track black programs for a living notice line items in the Pentagon's budget that don't match anything on the acknowledged aircraft list. That's not nothing. It's also not a confirmed program. Here's why the Pentagon might not mind that ambiguity existing. An adversary that believes this aircraft is already operational has to plan for it. They have to spend money on detection architecture they don't currently have. They have to redesign missile defense doctrine around a threat profile their engineers are still trying to model. They have to absorb the psychological weight of knowing there may be a weapon in their opponent's inventory they have no answer for. All of that happens whether or not the platform has actually completed its first operational flight. Strategic ambiguity isn't a side effect of secrecy. Sometimes it's the product. The budget signal points in one direction. Unacknowledged special access programs have consumed a growing share of U.S. defense spending over the past decade, and the gap between total black budget allocation and the programs analysts can account for by name has widened. Something is absorbing that money. Multiple somethings, probably, and the historical pattern keeps repeating. The F-117 was a rumor, then a fact. The B-2 was a rumor, then a fact. The SAR-72 itself was analyst speculation until Lockheed published it. Every one of those programs followed the same arc: denial, silence, then confirmation after the technology was mature enough that disclosure cost nothing strategically. Nobody outside the program knew the truth until Skunkworks decided they could afford to share it. That's exactly where the Phantom Wing sits right now. Either it's already flying and we're in the silence phase, or it's close enough that the rumors are doing useful work in the meantime. Both possibilities produce the same outcome for China and Iran. Whether the Phantom Wing is airborne tonight or still years from its first flight, the gap it represents is already reshaping how adversaries think and spend. China and Iran aren't building next-generation air defenses because they feel secure. Dozens of contacts, all moving fast, all closing on the same point. That's what the radar picture looks like when an Iranian drone swarm is inbound. Not one threat, not two, but a wall of cheap flying machines coming from multiple directions at once, each one designed to make sure the ship in front of them runs out of ways to fight back. 5 years ago, that was a real problem with no clean answer. Today it isn't, because somewhere in that engagement, a beam of focused light starts working through the swarm one drone at a time, and the drones just stop flying. No warning, no explosion at range. They just fall. Iran built its entire naval harassment strategy around a vulnerability that no longer exists. And that's the story we're getting into right now. Why Iran built a drone swarm strategy in the first place. To understand why this matters, you have to start with Iran's actual military situation, because Iran didn't build a drone swarm strategy because it wanted to. It built one because it had no other choice. Iran can't fight the U.S. Navy head-to-head. That's not an opinion, it's just arithmetic. A U.S. carrier strike group carries more air power than most countries' entire air forces. Iran's surface fleet is aging, its air force runs on decades-old American hardware it can no longer get parts for, and its Navy doesn't have the blue water capability to project force beyond the Gulf. Conventional confrontation with the U.S. would end badly and quickly, so Iran went a different direction. Instead of trying to match American capability dollar for dollar, they built a strategy around volume and cost. Send enough cheap things at a problem, and eventually the problem runs out of expensive solutions. The Shahed series drones are the heart of that approach. They're not sophisticated. They fly slow, they're relatively easy to detect on radar, and they don't have the kind of electronics you'd find on a military aircraft. What they have is price. A Shahed 136 costs somewhere in the range of $20,000 to $50,000 to produce. A standard missile intercept costs over $2 million. Send 20 drones at a ship and force it to fire 20 missiles, and you've just burned through $40 million worth of the enemy's inventory for under $1 million of your own. That's a trade Iran wins every time. And the strategy had real teeth. In 2019, drone and cruise missile strikes hit the Saudi Aramco processing facilities at Abqaiq and Khurais, knocking out roughly 5% of global oil supply overnight. The attack, in which U.S. officials linked to Iranian hardware, showed the world that this wasn't theory. Cheap aerial munitions could reach high-value targets and cause serious damage before anyone could stop them. In the Red Sea, Houthi forces backed by Iranian weapons and training ran the same playbook against commercial shipping and U.S. Navy warships for months. The USS Carney alone fired over 100 interceptor missiles in a single deployment period, defending against drone and missile attacks. 100 missiles. Gone. At sea, you can't just reload. A ship carries what it carries, and once the magazine runs low, the options get thin fast. That's the vulnerability Iran was targeting. Not the armor, not the sensors, not the crew, the inventory. Western navies are built around expensive precision weapons that you can only carry so many of, and Iran was betting it could keep sending cheap drones until those weapons ran out. For a while, the bet looked reasonable. Then the U.S. Navy started putting a very different kind of weapon on its ships. What the U.S. Navy's laser weapons actually are. The system the U.S. Navy has been quietly putting on its surface ships is called Helios. High-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance. USS Preble was the first destroyer to receive it, making her the first operational U.S. surface combatant to carry a solid-state laser weapon. Not a prototype sitting in a lab, not a test rig on a barge, a combat-ready system mounted on a warship operating in real threat environments. The physics behind it are simpler than you might expect. Helios focuses a high-powered beam of light onto a target and holds it there. The energy transfers into the surface material as heat, and it keeps building until something fails. The airframe warps, the engine seizes, the fuel ignites, or the electronics fry. There's no warhead, no shrapnel, no projectile traveling downrange. Just a sustained column of thermal energy moving at the speed of light, delivered precisely where the fire control system points it. What that means in practical terms is a cost per shot figure that sounds made up until you look at how the system actually works. Each firing costs roughly $1 in electricity. That's it. Compare that to the missile intercept costs we already covered, and you start to see why the Pentagon kept pushing this program even when early versions underperformed. The magazine situation is what really separates this from every other weapon on the ship. As long as the ship's power generators are running, the laser can keep firing. There's no reload, no resupply run, no hard limit on engagements per sortie. In a prolonged drone harassment campaign, exactly the kind Iran has been running in the Gulf, that's not a minor advantage. It's a structural one. Helios also isn't a single-mode weapon. At lower power settings, the dazzler function can blind the optical sensors on a surveillance drone without destroying it. Useful when the rules of engagement require a measured response. Step up the power and you can disable propulsion systems or cook the electronics without the airframe coming apart. Go to full power and you're burning through the drone itself. The operator picks the effect, the system delivers it. Before Helios, the Navy was already fielding a lower power version called Odin, Optical Dazzling Interdictor, Navy. Odin went on multiple surface ships first, which gave the service real operational data on how directed energy performs outside a test range. Humidity, sea spray, atmospheric turbulence, all of it affects how a laser beam holds together over distance, and you can't simulate that in a lab. Odin gave the Navy years of that data before Helios ever went to sea. The limitations are real and worth stating plainly. Heavy rain or thick fog degrades beam quality significantly because the atmosphere scatters the energy before it reaches the target. The system also needs to hold its beam on a target for several seconds to achieve a kill, which means a target that's maneuvering hard at long range is harder to engage reliably. Against a supersonic anti-ship missile pulling high G turns, a laser at current power levels isn't your first line of defense. But slow, straight-flying drones on a fixed approach path? The dwell requirement barely matters. A Shahed flying a pre-programmed route at low altitude isn't doing anything to break the beam's lock. It's just flying in a straight line toward a ship that's now pointing something at it that doesn't miss and doesn't run out of ammunition. The encounter, laser versus drone swarm. Picture the scenario the US Navy has been wargaming for years. A destroyer operating in the Persian Gulf, well inside the range corridor Iran uses for its drone operations. The radar picture fills with contacts, not one or two, but a coordinated wave coming in from multiple bearings at once. Some are high, some are skimming low over the water to complicate the tracking picture. This is the swarm profile Iran has rehearsed, and it's specifically designed to split a ship's defensive attention across too many targets simultaneously. Against a traditional layered defense, this is where things get ugly fast. The phalanx close-in weapons system can engage incoming threats, but it covers a limited arc, burns through its 20mm ammunition quickly, and by the time drones are close enough for phalanx to reliably engage them, you're already in a bad position. Standard missiles are accurate, but as we covered, there aren't unlimited rounds on board, and they're wasted on a $20,000 drone. Electronic jamming works against drones that rely on GPS or radio command links, but Shahed-type systems fly pre-programmed routes, cut the signal, and they just keep going. None of the traditional answers solve the volume problem cleanly. Helios approaches the same problem differently. The fire control system pulls track data from the ship's radar, assigns priority to the targets posing the most immediate threat, and the beam slews onto the first contact. Slew, dwell, kill, move. The mechanical turret repositions fast enough that the transition between targets takes a fraction of a second. There's no reload cycle between engagements, no cooldown that a swarm operator could try to exploit. The system works through the contacts sequentially, and the engagement rate is measured in seconds per drone, not minutes. The actual kill mechanism depends on where the beam holds. On a drone with a combustion engine, sustained heat on the fuel system or exhaust components can trigger ignition. On an electric UAV, the beam cooking through the fuselage reaches the battery pack or motor controller, and that's the end of the flight. Either way, the drone doesn't explode dramatically at distance. It just stops flying and drops. Sometimes there's a small fire on the way down, mostly it just falls. That last detail is something Iran's planners didn't fully account for, and it matters operationally. When a missile intercept happens, both sides know. There's a detonation, a debris field, a visible event that tells the attacking force its drone was stopped. The swarm operators can count intercepts, adjust, and keep pushing. With a laser kill, the feedback loop breaks down. A drone goes offline and the operators have no immediate way to know why. Signal failure, mechanical fault, or something they can't see burning through the airframe from 12 kilometers away. The swarm starts thinning, and the people who launched it don't have a clear picture of what's stopping it. US Navy testing has demonstrated exactly this capability against drone targets under operational conditions, and the service has publicly confirmed Helios is deployed and functional. The Red Sea operations didn't just validate the threat picture, they put directed energy systems into a genuine combat environment for the first time, generating data on real-world performance that no test range can replicate. What Iran's operators would actually experience on the receiving end of a Helios engagement is a swarm that starts losing units with no obvious cause. No contrails, no explosion at range, no radio intercept of a missile launch command. Just drones going silent, one after another, while the ship they were sent to overwhelm keeps sailing. The swarm thins, the attack fails, and somewhere in an Iranian operations room, someone's trying to figure out what just happened to their strategy. What this means for Iran's strategy going forward. The math Iran built its doctrine on has flipped completely. A dollar defeating a $20,000 drone isn't a minor economic inconvenience. It's the entire logic of the swarm strategy running in reverse. Iran needed the cost exchange to work in its favor, and now it doesn't. So what does Iran do next? There are a few options on paper, and none of them are good. The first is speed. If a laser needs several seconds of dwell time to achieve a kill, then a faster drone reduces the window the beam has to work with. In theory, you could build drones that cross the engagement zone quickly enough to limit damage. In practice, faster drones cost more to produce, require better propulsion systems, and burn more fuel, which cuts range. The whole point of the Shahed approach was disposable cheapness. The moment you start engineering for laser resistance, you're spending more per unit, which means you need fewer of them, which means the swarm gets smaller, which means the saturation strategy stops working. Reflective coatings are the other idea that gets floated. Certain materials can deflect or disperse laser energy rather than absorbing it. So coat the drone's surface, and maybe you reduce the beam's effectiveness. The problem is that materials capable of reflecting the specific wavelengths, military lasers operate at add weight, add cost, and require manufacturing precision that a mass production drone facility isn't set up for. You've turned a cheap, expendable weapon into an expensive, specialized one. And you've still only bought a few extra seconds of dwell time, not immunity. The saturation angle is the only one with any real logic to it. If you can't make each drone harder to kill, send enough of them that the laser can't work through the whole swarm before some get through. To do that, you need to know the system's maximum engagement rate, how many drones per minute it can cycle through, and then exceed it by a wide enough margin that some survive. The engagement rate for Helios is not public information. Iran would be building toward a number it can't verify, spending money on drone production at a scale that starts to undermine the cost advantage that made the strategy viable in the first place. Every Iranian naval commander and IRGC planner operating in the Gulf now has to factor in that any U.S. Navy destroyer they're looking at might be carrying a weapon with an effectively unlimited magazine. That changes targeting calculus, risk tolerance, and the whole harassment playbook Iran has been running for years. There's an irony buried in all of this that's worth sitting with. Iran's persistent drone pressure in the Gulf and the Red Sea, the harassment, the Houthi campaigns, the cost exchange problem that had Western navies genuinely worried. That pressure is a big part of why the U.S. moved so fast to get directed energy systems operational. Iran kept poking at the vulnerability, and the U.S. responded by closing it. The aggression that was supposed to stress American naval capacity may have done more to accelerate American laser development than any Pentagon budget cycle would have on its own. Iran spent years building a strategy around a math problem it thought the U.S. couldn't afford to fix. Then the U.S. fixed it for roughly $1 a shot. The U.S. Air Force has tried to retire the Warthog for years, but it is still flying combat missions today. Built in the 1970s, the Fairchild Republic A-10 Thunderbolt II is still flying combat missions in one of the most dangerous regions in the world, tracking fast-moving threats in the Strait of Hormuz. So how does a 50-year-old warplane stay relevant in the age of stealth jets and hypersonic weapons? And what is it doing today that modern fighters still can't replicate? Join us as we reveal why the Warthog refuses to disappear and how Iran is currently paying the price for that. Let us start with the sound, one of the things the Warthog is famous for. When an A-10 fires its cannon, the noise it makes sounds like the sky is tearing open. A deep, violent, mechanical roar that lasts less than 2 seconds but feels like it goes on forever. Pilots who have heard it from the cockpit describe it as unlike anything else in aviation. Ground troops who have heard it from below describe something closer to relief, the particular kind of relief that comes from knowing that whatever was about to harm you is no longer a threat. That sound is the GAU-8 Avenger, a 30mm rotary cannon that is not just a weapon mounted on an aircraft. It is the reason the aircraft exists in the first place. The A-10's entire airframe was designed around the GAU-8. The aircraft was built to carry that gun into battle, and every other design decision, the engines, the wings, the cockpit, and the landing gear were made in service of that central function. The GAU-8 fires at a rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. Its average recoil force is 10,000 pounds, which is slightly more than the thrust output of each of the A-10's 2 engines. The rounds it fires are accurate enough to put 80% of shots within a 40-foot diameter circle from 4,000 feet while the aircraft is in flight. In a world that increasingly debates whether human pilots are even necessary, where the conversation is dominated by stealth, hypersonics, and artificial intelligence, the A-10 is the most stubbornly analog weapon in the American arsenal. It flies low and slow. It gets close to things and shoots them with a cannon until they stop being a threat. That is not a philosophy that fits neatly into a PowerPoint about 6th-generation air dominance. But it turns out that philosophy is devastatingly effective in the specific conditions where Iran decided to pick a fight. To understand why the Warthog is in the Middle East right now, let's go back to the beginning and understand what this aircraft was actually built to do. The A-10 was born from a very specific fear. In the 1960s and 70s, American military planners looked at the Soviet Union's massive tank force and asked a deeply uncomfortable question. If the Red Army rolls into Western Europe, what stops it? The answer they arrived at was an aircraft designed from scratch to destroy armored vehicles as quickly and as cheaply as possible, in the most dangerous conditions imaginable, and then come home. The result was an aircraft with a titanium-armored cockpit nicknamed the Bathtub, redundant flight systems designed so the aircraft could continue flying after taking significant damage, and an airframe robust enough to return to base with one engine destroyed, one tail damaged, or significant wing damage. The Warthog was built to survive being hit and keep fighting anyway. During Desert Storm alone, A-10s destroyed over 900 Iraqi tanks, around 2,000 military vehicles, and nearly 1,200 artillery systems. It even reportedly shot down 2 Iraqi helicopters, a rare feat for a ground attack aircraft that carries no radar and was never intended for air-to-air combat. After Desert Storm came Kosovo, then Afghanistan, then Iraq again, then Libya, then Syria. Every time the military establishment declared the Warthog obsolete, another conflict arose in which it proved to be exactly the right tool for exactly the right job. The Air Force, for its part, has been trying to retire the A-10 for years. The argument is straightforward and not without merit. The aircraft is slow and non-stealthy, built for low-altitude attacks that become genuinely dangerous against modern air defenses, equipped with man-portable missiles and radar-guided guns. Advanced air defense systems from Russia and China can engage it long before it reaches its target. The Air Force argues that modern multi-role fighters equipped with precision-guided munitions can perform close air support from safer altitudes, and that the money spent maintaining an aging fleet of specialized aircraft would be better directed toward next-generation capabilities. The Air Force's fiscal year 2026 budget included a request for $57 million to retire all 162 remaining A-10s, 2 years ahead of schedule. The plan was clear. The Warthog was done. However, the Congress disagreed again. The fiscal year 2026 National Defense Authorization Act prohibited the Air Force from reducing the A-10 inventory below 103 aircraft and required at least 93 primary mission aircraft through September 30th, 2026. Any further reduction required a unit-by-unit waiver process, a 30-day notification period, and a multi-year transition plan covering 2027 through 2029, mandated by March 31st, 2026. Congress essentially looked at the Air Force's retirement plan and said no. Keep the Warthog flying. And then, less than 3 months later, Operation Epic Fury began, and the aircraft that was supposed to be in the process of being retired found itself in the opening wave of the largest American military campaign in the Middle East in over 2 decades. U.S. Central Command confirmed that a 10 Thunderbolt II aircraft were employed during the first 48 hours of Operation Epic Fury against Iranian targets, integrated into the initial strike wave from the very beginning of the campaign, not called in as backup, not deployed as an afterthought, in the opening salvos. The first official images CENTCOM released of the A-10 in action during Epic Fury told a story about the variety of threats it was being sent to handle. The aircraft were carrying a mixed loadout: AGM-65 Maverick air-to-surface guided missiles, LAU-131 rocket pods loaded with laser-guided rockets, AIM-9 Sidewinder air-to-air missiles for self-defense, a Lightning targeting pod for precision identification of targets, and a 600-gallon external fuel tank for extended loiter time. That loadout tells you something important about the threat environment in Epic Fury. The Maverick missiles are for armored targets and hardened positions. The laser-guided rockets are versatile precision weapons that can engage small, fast-moving threats at relatively low cost. The Sidewinders suggest the possibility of engaging Iranian drones in the air, which have become a significant threat across the region. And the 600-gallon fuel tank says that whoever loaded this aircraft expected it to stay airborne over the target area for a long time, ready to respond to whatever emerged. CENTCOM emphasized precisely this capability in the statement accompanying the A-10 imagery. The aircraft can remain on station for hours, standing ready to execute a mission whenever needed. That word, loiter, is the one that appears again and again in every discussion of why the A-10 remains relevant. Multi-role fighters can deliver more sophisticated weapons from greater distances, but they cannot circle over a target area for hours at a time, watching for threats to emerge, waiting for a boat to appear around a headland or a missile launch team to move positions. The A-10 can, and in the geography of the Strait of Hormuz, that capability proved decisive. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane confirmed at a Pentagon press conference that the A-10 Warthog is now engaged across the southern flank of Operation Epic Fury, hunting and killing fast-attack watercraft in the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most strategically important bodies of water on Earth. Roughly 20% of the world's daily oil supply transits the strait. Iran has long maintained a strategy of threatening to close the strait to shipping in any serious conflict, using swarms of fast attack boats, mines, and coastal missiles to make passage too dangerous for commercial vessels. It is an asymmetric threat that does not require Iran to defeat the U.S. Navy in a conventional sense. It just needs to make insurance companies decide that sending tankers through the strait is too risky. The economic disruption that follows can be devastating for regional states, for global energy markets, and for any American effort to sustain regional alliances. Iran's fast attack boat strategy is built on numbers and speed. Small, fast vessels, difficult to track, appearing from coastal inlets and islands, capable of laying mines or firing missiles before air defense systems can respond effectively. Against an F-35 operating at altitude, these boats are genuinely hard to engage. They are fast, small, low on the water, and easy to lose against the radar clutter of a busy coastline. Against an A-10 flying low and slow at 300 knots with a targeting pod, a Maverick missile, and a pilot who has been training for exactly this scenario for years, they are not hard to find at all. The A-10 was specifically trained for the maritime role of hunting Iran's fast boat fleets long before Operation Epic Fury began. In early February 2026, A-10s were conducting close air support missions for the USS Santa Barbara in the Arabian Gulf as part of the force buildup ahead of the campaign, protecting mine-hunting operations in constrained waters near the strait from fast boat swarms and mining threats. In a March 16th video, CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper stated that U.S. forces had destroyed more than 100 Iranian naval vessels and vowed to continue rapidly depleting Iran's ability to threaten freedom of navigation in and around the Strait of Hormuz. 100 vessels. And the A-10 was actively contributing to that tally, not as a supplementary platform, but as one of the primary tools the U.S. military chose to clear the strait. A-10s were also spotted with Sidewinder missiles engaging Shahed-type Iranian drones during counter-unmanned aerial systems missions, an air-to-air role that nobody designed the Warthog for, but which pilots have adapted to over years of operational deployment in environments flooded with cheap Iranian drones. As the campaign expanded, flight tracking data revealed that the Air Force was preparing to send additional A-10s across the Atlantic toward the Middle East, with 12 aircraft arriving at RAF Lakenheath in late March 2026, suggesting a significant expansion of the Warthog's role in the campaign. The aircraft that the Air Force was actively trying to retire 6 months earlier was being reinforced mid-conflict. The debate about the A-10's future will continue after Epic Fury ends, but right now, somewhere over the Strait of Hormuz, an aircraft designed in the 70s to kill Soviet tanks is flying low over contested waters, scanning for Iranian fast boats, and making the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps pay for the mistake of thinking that cheap, swarming naval tactics could close the world's most important oil choke point without consequence. A $35,000 drone has changed the course of modern warfare in ways few anticipated. Iran spent years developing a weapon that struck fear across the Middle East, affordable, relentless, and deployed in overwhelming numbers. Then the United States executed an unprecedented strategy. It captured the very same drone, rebuilt it, stamped it, made in America, and turned it against its creators. How can a nation's own weapon be used against it? And what does this mean for the future of war? Join us as we reveal how the United States just cloned Iran's most feared drone and how it changes everything. For years, the United States military operated with one unspoken assumption, that raw technological superiority would always be enough. The idea that a drone costing roughly the same as a used car could challenge that dominance seemed almost laughable. America had stealth fighters that cost over $100 million each. It had cruise missiles that could thread a window from 1,000 miles away. It had aircraft carriers that projected power across entire oceans. The notion that a cheap, propeller-driven flying bomb could threaten any of that seemed almost absurd. Then came the Shahed. Iran's Shahed 136 is not an impressive machine on paper. It is a delta-winged, propeller-driven drone with a small warhead and no pilot. It does not evade radar with cutting-edge stealth coatings. It does not fire back when attacked. It flies relatively slowly, at low altitude, guided by GPS coordinates to a pre-programmed target. And when it arrives, it explodes. That is the entire concept. There is no recovery. There is no second mission. The drone is the weapon, and the weapon is expendable. And yet this relatively unsophisticated drone did something that billion-dollar weapon systems could not. It broke the economics of modern air defense. And once it broke them, nothing in the calculus of modern warfare was ever quite the same again. To understand why the Shahed was so strategically disruptive, you have to understand how air defense economics work. Every air defense system operates on a basic principle. The cost of intercepting an incoming threat must be justified by the value of what you are protecting. For most of military history, that equation made sense. Incoming missiles and aircraft were expensive to build and operate, so spending $1 million to shoot one down was rational. The attacker was losing something valuable every time they fired. The defender was spending money, but so was the attacker. The Shahed shattered that logic completely. When Russia began deploying Iranian-supplied Shahed drones against Ukraine in massive numbers, Western defense analysts watched in quiet horror. Not because the drones were destroying targets with pinpoint precision, but because of what it was costing to stop them. Ukraine and its allies were firing Patriot interceptors worth over $1 million each to destroy drones that cost somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 to build. The attacker was spending a fraction of what the defender was spending. Every single engagement was a financial victory for Iran and Russia, regardless of whether the drone hit its target or not. The Shahed did not need to be accurate. It needed to be plentiful. And it was. Thousands of them were produced, deployed, and launched, attacking from multiple directions simultaneously. They flew at night to complicate visual detection. They flew low to complicate radar detection. They forced defenders to make impossible choices at every engagement. Exhaust your interceptor stockpile or let them through and accept the damage. Either way, the attacker benefits. This was the strategic lesson that shook every major military on Earth. The United States military studied this lesson very carefully. Defense analysts wrote about it. Think tanks published reports on it. The War Zone, one of the most respected military publications in the country, had been arguing for years that America needed to be building tens of thousands of Shahed clones immediately. The logic was simple and uncomfortable. If this strategy works against us and our allies, we need to be able to use it too. And we need to be able to use it at scale. And then America did exactly that. The low-cost, uncrewed combat attack system, known as Lucas, is the American answer to the Shahed 136. And the connection between the two is not subtle or theoretical. It is direct, deliberate, and openly acknowledged. American officials have described the process without apology. The United States captured one of Iran's Shahed drones, extracted its internal components, sent them back to engineers in the United States, rebuilt the system from the ground up using American manufacturing and American technology, added significant upgrades, and then deployed it against the very country that designed the original. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper put it in terms that left no room for interpretation. He told reporters that the United States captured the Iranian drone, pulled the guts out, sent it back to America, put a Made in America stamp on it, brought it back, and started shooting it at the Iranians. That is not a paraphrase. That is the admiral in charge of the entire Iran campaign, describing the program with remarkable candor at a press conference in Tampa, Florida. The drones are manufactured by SpectreWorks, a company based in Phoenix, Arizona. Each unit costs approximately $35,000. A Tomahawk cruise missile costs between $2 million and $2.5 million per shot. An air-launched cruise missile currently in service costs over $1 million. For the price of a single Tomahawk, the United States can now field over 50 Lucas drones. But Lucas is not simply a cheaper version of America's existing weapons. It represents a fundamentally different philosophy about what a weapon is supposed to be and how it is supposed to be used. Traditional American military doctrine has always been built around the principle of preservation. The entire procurement culture of the American military is built around the idea that each platform is a precious, irreplaceable asset. Lucas, however, inverts that logic entirely. These drones are designed from the start to be expended. They are not supposed to come back. The goal is to produce them so quickly and so cheaply that losing one in combat is strategically irrelevant. Defense planners call this concept attritable systems, platforms that are deliberately designed and accepted to be used up in combat. It is a radical departure from how the United States has approached weapons procurement for generations, and it reflects a hard-won recognition that in a conflict against an adversary willing to absorb enormous losses, the ability to match volume matters as much as the ability to field superior technology. The upgrades that America added on top of the Iranian original make Lucas significantly more capable than the weapon it was modeled after. The differences are not cosmetic, they are operationally transformative. Where the Shahed 136 flies a fixed GPS route to a pre-programmed coordinate and strikes whatever happens to be there when it arrives, Lucas operates in an entirely different tactical dimension. Multiple Lucas drones can communicate with each other while airborne. They can share sensor data, coordinate their approach vectors, and adjust their targeting based on what other units in the swarm are detecting in real time. This is autonomous cooperative behavior among multiple drones executing a shared mission. Some units in the fleet are equipped with Starlink satellite terminals, giving them beyond line-of-sight connectivity that allows targeting information to be updated while the drone is already in flight toward its objective. A Lucas drone can be launched, fly for hundreds of miles, receive updated coordinates mid-mission, and redirect itself to a new target without any human physically controlling it from moment to moment. The human remains in the loop in terms of authorizing the mission and approving the target list, but the execution is autonomous. The original Shahed was a blunt instrument designed for volume. The American version is a precision instrument that also happens to be available in volume. Lucas drones can be launched from multiple platforms, catapult systems on the ground, vehicle-mounted mobile launchers, and critically, from ships at sea. They were test-launched from the Independence-class littoral combat ship USS Santa Barbara in the Persian Gulf before they ever saw combat. That naval launch capability is strategically significant. It means Lucas is not dependent on fixed airstrips that can be targeted and destroyed. It can be deployed from almost anywhere across a vast operating area, which makes the launch infrastructure itself extraordinarily difficult to suppress. CENTCOM established Task Force Scorpion Strike in December of 2025, following directives from War Secretary Pete Hegseth to accelerate the acquisition and deployment of cost-effective drone technology. It was the first squadron in American military history dedicated entirely to one-way attack drones. The mission was straightforward: provide affordable, rapidly deployable offensive drone capability to commanders in the Middle East as quickly as possible. The first combat use of Lucas came during Operation Epic Fury, the joint United States and Israeli military campaign targeting Iranian assets that began in early March of 2026. Task Force Scorpion Strike used Lucas drones in the opening salvos of the campaign. They were fired at unspecified Iranian targets on the first day and used repeatedly in the days that followed. For the first time in history, American forces were using mass-produced, low-cost kamikaze drones in sustained combat operations, the same category of weapon that had been exclusively associated with Iran and Russia just years before. When asked directly how effective Lucas had been in combat and how much it was helping preserve the stockpile of more expensive munitions, Admiral Cooper gave a two-word assessment: indispensable. That single word from the commander of United States Central Command is worth dwelling on, meaning the campaign is conducted could not have been executed in the same way without it. When asked what kinds of targets Lucas had been used against, Cooper's answer was equally economical. Good ones. The strategic impact of Lucas extends well beyond any individual strike or any single campaign. For years, one of the most serious concerns animating American military planning around a potential conflict with Iran was the question of magazine depth. Iran possesses thousands of drones and missiles. Producing enough expensive cruise missiles and interceptors to match that volume was economically and industrially unsustainable over a prolonged conflict. The fear was that Iranian barrages would outlast American and Allied stockpiles, forcing a choice between accepting devastating strikes or escalating beyond what the political situation could bear. Lucas has directly addressed that fear. Iran's response to all of this was as revealing as it was predictable. Rather than acknowledging that the United States had studied their approach and built a superior version of their own weapon, Iranian military officials pivoted to accusation. The spokesperson for Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya central headquarters publicly charged that America and Israel had copied the Shahed design and were deploying Lucas drones specifically to frame Iran for drone attacks across the region that they themselves were carrying out. The allegation was elaborate. Lucas was not a weapon aimed at Iran, but an impersonation designed to make Tehran look responsible for strikes it had nothing to do with. Consider what that accusation actually reveals beneath the political theater. Iran built a drone so effective, so distinctive in its design, and so thoroughly associated with Iranian military operations across the Middle East that when America built a near-identical version, Iran's instinct was not to acknowledge the imitation. Their instinct was to claim that America was using the similarity to commit fraud. That response tells you everything about how central the Shahed had become to Iran's sense of its own military identity. And it tells you everything about how completely Lucas had disrupted that identity. The upgraded F-22 Raptor is challenging global defense norms. With enhanced stealth, improved engines, and advanced sensor fusion, its air superiority is redefined. Critics warn these changes could trigger an arms race, while others argue it secures U.S. dominance. Meanwhile, China and Russia are investing in next-generation fighter technologies to lead the innovation race. As Beijing and Moscow ramp up their modernization efforts, the critical question remains: can the F-22 maintain its supremacy, or will emerging platforms like the F-47 usher in a new era of aerial warfare? Join us as we uncover the cutting-edge upgrades of the F-22 Raptor, advancements so powerful they've captured China's attention. The F-22 Raptor is one of the most advanced fighter jets ever built, but it didn't start out that way. It began as part of the U.S. Air Force's Advanced Tactical Fighter program in 1981. The goal was to replace the F-15 and F-16, which were powerful but becoming vulnerable to new Soviet threats. The Soviets were developing advanced missiles, airborne warning systems, and new fighters like the Su-27 and MiG-29, which could challenge U.S. air superiority. To stay ahead, the U.S. needed a fighter that was faster, stealthier, and more advanced. Engineers designed the ATF to dominate in a future war, using cutting-edge technology like lightweight materials, better flight controls, and engines that allowed supercruise. Sustained supersonic flight without using fuel-hungry afterburners. Most importantly, it had stealth capabilities, making it nearly invisible to enemy radar. After years of competition, Lockheed YF-22 won against Northrop's YF-23 in 1991. While the YF-23 was stealthier and faster, the YF-22 was more maneuverable thanks to its thrust vectoring engines, which allowed it to perform sharp turns and outmaneuver enemies in close combat. Lockheed's design also had fewer risks, making it the Air Force's top choice. Over the years, the F-22 has received multiple upgrades to keep it at the top of the game. Originally built for air-to-air combat, it has been enhanced to handle air-to-ground missions, with precision bombs, making it more versatile. Its avionics have been upgraded, including better radar and sensor fusion, allowing pilots to detect and track threats even more effectively. One of the biggest improvements is its stealth maintenance. When the F-22 first entered service, its stealth coatings required a lot of upkeep, but new materials have made it more durable and easier to maintain. This means less downtime and more time in the air, ready for action. The F-22's weapon systems have also been enhanced. It now uses improved AIM-9X Sidewinder missiles for short-range dogfights and AIM-120D AMRAAM missiles for long-range engagements. Additionally, new software upgrades have given it the ability to communicate better with other aircraft, improving its role in networked warfare. While the Air Force stopped producing the F-22 after building 186 jets, it has continued to receive technological upgrades. Some of these improvements come from lessons learned during the development of the upcoming next-generation air dominance fighter, and they have enhanced the fighter jet's ability to detect, track, and eliminate threats before they even know it's there. These technological upgrades have significantly strengthened one of the F-22's most critical advantages, its radar and sensor systems. The jet's ANAPG-77 radar allows pilots to spot enemy aircraft from extreme distances while staying undetected. This radar uses active electronically scanned array technology, which improves tracking and targeting while reducing the chance of being detected by enemy systems. Combined with powerful jamming capabilities, the F-22 can disrupt enemy communications and radar, making it even harder to counter. The F-22 doesn't just rely on stealth, it's also armed with some of the deadliest air-to-air weapons in the world. The AIM-120 AMRAAM missile is its primary long-range weapon, designed to engage enemy aircraft before they get close. For close-range combat, the AIM-9X Sidewinder offers unmatched agility, allowing the Raptor to take down threats even during high-speed dogfights. Additionally, the F-22 carries an M61 Vulcan 20mm cannon, a 6-barrel rotary gun capable of firing 6,000 rounds per minute. This provides a powerful backup for situations where missiles aren't an option. Speed and agility are key to the F-22's dominance. Its thrust vectoring nozzles give it unmatched control in the air, allowing it to perform maneuvers no other fighter can match. Whether it's executing high G turns, rapid climbs, or sudden dives, the Raptor can outmaneuver opponents with ease. This ability is critical in dogfights, where the slightest advantage can mean the difference between victory and defeat. Former pilots often describe flying the F-22 as effortless, with its advanced flight controls making complex maneuvers feel smooth and precise. This agility ensures the Raptor can engage and disengage at will, giving its pilots complete control over the battlefield. While the F-22 is already a technological marvel, ongoing software and hardware upgrades will keep it ahead of emerging threats. The F-3R, that is, Form, Fit, Function, Refresh program, is enhancing the aircraft's avionics, increasing its processing power and sensor capabilities. These improvements will make the Raptor even deadlier, allowing it to integrate with next-generation systems and unmanned drones in future combat scenarios. The Air Force is also working on engine enhancements to boost efficiency and power, ensuring the Raptor remains capable of supersonic speeds without afterburners. These updates will extend the F-22's operational life, keeping it in service for years to come. Last year, Lockheed Martin successfully ran 6 flight tests to add new high-tech features to the stealth fighter. The U.S. Air Force relies heavily on its fleet of F-22s, and these upgrades will help keep the jet at the top of its game, possibly all the way into the 2040s. Some of the biggest improvements include a new infrared defensive system, advanced sensors, and special stealthy drop tanks that extend its range. At the 2025 Air and Space Forces Warfare Symposium, Lockheed Martin shared updates about these developments. Right now, the Air Force has about 180 F-22s, though 32 of them are older models used only for training and testing. Mike Shoemaker, a top executive at Lockheed Martin, emphasized the significance of the upgrades, stating that modern fighter jets must have enhanced vision, quicker threat detection, and extended strike capabilities. He mentioned that recent flight tests had concentrated on integrating advanced sensors to improve the F-22 Raptor's ability to track and engage targets from much greater distances, significantly boosting its combat advantage. While Lockheed Martin didn't share specific details about these sensors, the Air Force has been testing stealthy underwing pods on the F-22 for years. Many experts believe these pods house an advanced infrared search and track system, which would allow the Raptor to detect enemy aircraft without using radar, perfect for staying hidden while hunting down threats. Another major improvement coming to the F-22 is its next-generation infrared defensive system. Mike confirmed that Lockheed Martin is already under contract to integrate this technology, which will give the Raptor better missile warning capabilities in long-range detection. In simple terms, this means the jet will not only be better at spotting enemies, but also at avoiding surprise attacks. Lockheed Martin previously revealed that IRDS will use a distributed sensor system based on Hyperspeed technology, first introduced in 2022. Hyperspeed sensors provide a constant infrared view of the battlefield, helping pilots detect and track threats, even in complete darkness. So far, these sensors have only been fully integrated into F-5 advanced Tiger jets used by private military contractors. Now they're making their way to the world's most advanced stealth fighter. Mike's comments confirm that the F-22's new advanced sensor upgrade is different from the infrared search and track distributed system. This suggests that the Raptor may get even more advanced infrared tracking capabilities. Adding an extra infrared sensor pod alongside IRDS makes sense. Traditional IRST systems, whether built into jets or carried as external pods, typically use large, swiveling sensors to track targets from different angles. TAC IRST, the system being developed for the F-22, works differently. In 2017, Ken Merchant, a Lockheed Martin executive for the F-22 program, explained that there wasn't enough space inside the jet to install a full IRST system like the F-35's Electro-Optical Targeting System, or EOTS. EOTS mainly helps with air-to-ground targeting, but it also has infrared tracking capabilities. Even on its own, IRDS would be a huge improvement over the F-22's current ANAAR-56 missile launch detector, which only provides basic infrared warnings. TASI IRST sensors spread across the aircraft could help the Raptor detect threats more effectively, similar to how the F-35 distributed aperture system works. Using both built-in and podded IRST sensors together would be a game changer. As experts have explained, traditional IRST sensors can only detect a target's direction and movement, but struggle to determine its exact range. However, if two aircraft with IRST systems share data, they can quickly triangulate a target's position with precision. Lockheed Martin has already demonstrated this kind of teamwork using its Legion pod, which features an IRST-21 sensor. This system can provide high-quality targeting data and has been tested on various fighter jets. The F-22 was originally supposed to have an IRST system, but budget cuts removed it late in development. Now, with stealth technology becoming more common worldwide, the U.S. military sees infrared tracking as crucial. Unlike radar, which actively sends out signals that enemies can detect, IRST works passively. It simply listens for heat signatures, making it perfect for tracking stealth aircraft. IRST can also help radar systems lock onto targets more effectively, providing better accuracy without revealing the jet's position. One of the biggest advantages of IRST is that it's immune to electronic warfare. Modern enemy forces use jamming technology to disrupt radars, but infrared tracking can't be blocked in the same way. This makes IRST a powerful tool for detecting and tracking stealthy threats. Mike reassured that any new F-22 upgrades would maintain the aircraft's stealth capabilities. This is crucial as the U.S. faces increasing threats from advanced enemy aircraft and stealthy weapons. China, for example, recently unveiled two new stealth fighter designs, signaling rapid advancements in their air combat technology. He also emphasized the importance of detecting threats from greater distances in modern air combat. He explained that if an aircraft could sense and see farther, it would also be able to share that information with other units. The F-22 Raptor had already proven itself as one of the most advanced fighters, acting as a central coordinator for larger aerial teams. Mike noted that it could gather intelligence, guide other aircraft, and ensure air superiority. Lockheed Martin, alongside the U.S. Air Force and industry partners, had been working to enhance the Raptor's communication and networking abilities to further improve its role in battle. According to Lockheed Martin, the F-22 was the first combat aircraft to fully utilize an open mission systems architecture, which allowed for faster and easier software upgrades. This feature made the aircraft highly adaptable to new technologies. A major software update known as Release 4 was in its final testing phase. If everything proceeded as planned, the update would be available for the entire F-22 fleet by the end of the spring. He also pointed out that this upgrade would make it easier to integrate third-party applications into the aircraft's mission systems, enhancing its capabilities even further. When discussing the timeline for the Raptor's new sensor capabilities, Mike mentioned that they were expected to be delivered to the fleet within the next few years. In the meantime, he highlighted that the F-22 remained in high demand. It was also revealed that Lockheed Martin had been supporting increased operations and deployments despite the relatively small size of the F-22 fleet. He acknowledged the challenges of maintaining a fleet that had accumulated over 500,000 flying hours, but reassured that the aircraft would not require major structural upgrades to continue serving well into the 2040s. The long-term future of the F-22, however, remained tied to the Air Force's next-generation air dominance program. Originally designed to replace the Raptor, NGAD had undergone a detailed review the previous year. It was suggested that the analysis appeared to favor continuing the program as planned, although concerns about affordability persisted. Developing a next-generation fighter required significant funding, which had to be balanced with other military priorities, such as stealth refueling tankers and AI-powered drone wingmen, known as collaborative combat aircraft. Additionally, rising costs in the Sentinel intercontinental ballistic missile program had forced the Air Force to reassess its budget. Shoemaker also mentioned that discussions were still ongoing regarding the optimal size of the B-21 Raider stealth bomber fleet. Meanwhile, the Department of Defense was facing potential budget cuts to existing programs in order to redirect resources toward new priorities, including the Golden Dome missile defense system. Despite these uncertainties, Lockheed Martin remained confident in the F-22's continued importance. It was indicated that the aircraft's upgrades were already contributing to NGAD research, ensuring its relevance in modern air combat. However, as the U.S. Air Force moves forward with the next generation of fighters, a major shift is underway. The recent unveiling of the F-47, the Air Force's newest jet, marks a significant leap beyond the F-22, offering superior range, stealth, and cost-effectiveness. Air Force Chief of Staff General David W. Alvin, who spoke at a high-profile event alongside former President Donald Trump, revealed new details about this once-secret aircraft. Alvin reportedly stated that, despite claims from adversaries, the F-47 would be the first crewed sixth-generation fighter in the world. His comments were seen as a response to China, which had recently unveiled its own stealth aircraft. He explained that the F-47 would join the B-21 Raider stealth bomber in the Air Force's new fleet and would be equipped with advanced stealth technology, next-generation sensors, and long-range attack capabilities. These features, he noted, would make the aircraft highly effective in contested battle zones. Although the Air Force did not reveal all details about the F-47, the concept images released showed notable design differences compared to previous fifth-generation fighters like the F-22 and F-35. Observers noted that while the F-47 had a traditional, stealthy nose and bubble canopy, it also included forward canards and sharply angled wings, features not commonly associated with stealth aircraft. Alvin reportedly emphasized that the F-47 would have a significantly longer range than the F-22. The existing F-22 could fly more than 1,850 miles with external fuel tanks before needing to refuel, but the F-47 was expected to exceed that distance considerably. Discussions within the Air Force had suggested the possibility of producing two variants of the aircraft, one larger version designed for long-range missions, particularly in the Pacific, and another smaller version optimized for shorter-range operations in Europe. According to the Air Force, the F-47 represents a major leap forward and had been designed with a modular system that would allow it to be upgraded over time. Officials expressed confidence that this approach would ensure the aircraft remained effective for decades. Alvin further explained that for the past 5 years, the Air Force had been testing NGAD technologies using experimental X-planes. These test aircraft had flown hundreds of hours, helping engineers refine advanced systems and accelerate the development process. He stated that this extensive testing had allowed them to push the limits of technology and bring the fighter into service more quickly than previous programs. He also reportedly expressed confidence that the F-47 would be operational within former President Trump's administration, which would last until January 2029. Comparisons were made to the F-22, which took 6 years to progress from selection in 1991 to its first production flight. It was also noted that references to NGAD test flights had surfaced as early as 2020. However, former Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall had later revealed that prototype flights had likely taken place even earlier, possibly in the mid-2010s. One of the biggest issues with the F-22 was its cost. While the basic construction of each jet cost around $140 million, once research, development, and other expenses were included, the price soared to about $350 million per aircraft. Now, with the Next Generation Air Dominance program, the Air Force plans to field between 220 and 250 advanced fighters. The F-47, a product of this effort, is expected to be a game-changer. Unlike older stealth aircraft, which required extensive maintenance to keep their radar-evading surfaces intact, the F-47 will feature a more durable design, reducing downtime and making it combat-ready more often. This design philosophy follows lessons learned from the new B-21 Raider bomber, which was built to fly frequently without excessive maintenance. The F-47 is also built for adaptability. Thanks to digital engineering and an open systems approach, its software, sensors, and mission equipment can be upgraded quickly and easily. It will also need fewer crew members and ground support to operate, making it more flexible in real-world missions. Boeing won the contract to develop the F-47, which will now enter its engineering and testing phase. Initially, a small number of test aircraft will be produced, with options for further production later. Boeing stated that this fighter will continue its legacy of building some of the most famous aircraft in U.S. history, including the P-51 Mustang, F-15 Eagle, and F/A-18 Hornet. The decision to select Boeing over Lockheed Martin was surprising to some. Boeing has faced issues with several military projects, such as the KC-46 tanker and T-7 trainer, resulting in significant cost overruns. Meanwhile, Lockheed, the maker of the F-22 and F-35, has struggled with delays in upgrading the F-35's technology and managing its high maintenance costs. However, the Air Force has not publicly shared the reasons behind its choice. Despite the debates surrounding the selection process, the Air Force remains focused on ensuring air superiority. The next generation fighter is expected to dominate the skies, keeping the U.S. ahead of threats for decades. Meanwhile, the F-22 will remain a key part of the USF's fleet, benefiting from upgrades until its eventual replacement by the Boeing F-47, ensuring continued air superiority well into the future. Somewhere over the Persian Gulf, an Iranian radar operator stares at a screen showing something that shouldn't exist. A contact, moving faster than anything in their threat library, crossing their airspace at an altitude where the air is so thin, it barely qualifies as atmosphere. They try to hold it. The track slips. They try again, and then it's gone. Out of range. Out of reach. Mission complete on the other end. They never got a lock. This is what happens when you point a missile system at an aircraft that operates outside the physics those systems were built around. Iran's air defense network is one of the most layered in the Middle East, and it still couldn't answer the problem. We're going to break down exactly why, what the SR-72 actually is, how Iran's defenses work, what went wrong during the encounter, and why the result was settled before the aircraft ever crossed the coastline. Most people hear SR-72 and think faster SR-71. That's the wrong mental model entirely. The SR-71 Blackbird was built around the idea of going fast enough that nothing could catch it. Mach 3 plus, high altitude, get in and get out. It worked for decades. But the SR-72 isn't an evolution of that concept. It's a different concept altogether. The thinking behind it is that speed itself becomes a weapon, not just a survival mechanism. There's a gap between those two ideas that matters more than it sounds. Lockheed's Skunk Works, the same team behind the U-2, the SR-71, and the F-117, developed the SR-72 around a propulsion system that doesn't exist anywhere else in operational aviation. It's a combined cycle engine, which means it runs as a conventional turbine at lower speeds and transitions to scramjet propulsion as it accelerates through the hypersonic regime. A scramjet has no moving parts and combust fuel using air compressed purely by the vehicle's own velocity. Below a certain speed, it produces nothing. But past roughly Mach 4, it takes over and pushes the aircraft toward Mach 6, around 4,500 miles per hour at altitude. That number sounds abstract until you think about what it means for anyone trying to shoot the aircraft down. A surface-to-air missile doesn't fly at your target. It flies at where your target is going to be. The fire control system calculates a point in space. The missile heads for that point, and if the prediction is accurate, you get an intercept. That calculation depends on having enough time to run the math and enough track data to make the prediction reliable. At Mach 6, the SR-72 crosses a typical radar engagement zone in seconds. The fire control system has almost no data to work with, the prediction window collapses, and the intercept solution never solidifies. Speed at this level also works against detection in ways that aren't obvious. The aircraft runs hot. Hypersonic friction heats the airframe to extreme temperatures. But it also operates at altitudes near the top of the stratosphere, where most ground-based radar systems aren't optimized to look. The geometry of radar coverage has a ceiling, and the SR-72 operates close to it. That means the radar picture is already degraded before you factor in any low observable design features the aircraft carries. Now, the fair question the audience always asks, is the SR-72 actually operational, or is this still a program? The honest answer is that it lives in a gray zone. Lockheed has confirmed the program exists. The U.S. Air Force has referenced hypersonic reconnaissance capabilities without naming the platform. Operational deployment details are classified. That ambiguity isn't accidental. The uncertainty about where the aircraft is and what it can do is itself part of the deterrent. An adversary who doesn't know whether you're overhead right now has to behave as if you might be. Every air defense system flying today was designed before hypersonic cruise platforms became real. The SR-72 is the first aircraft that makes those systems structurally obsolete. So that's the machine. Now you need to understand what it was flying into. Iran didn't build its air defense network overnight, and it didn't build it cheap. What exists today is one of the most layered systems in the Middle East, assembled over decades from a mix of Russian hardware, domestically engineered platforms, and a command structure that ties them together across the country's most sensitive airspace, including the Gulf. The centerpiece of the Russian-supplied portion is the S-300. This isn't a simple radar-guided missile battery. The S-300 was engineered specifically to engage fast, high-altitude threats. Ballistic missiles, fast jets, low observable aircraft. It operates across multiple frequency bands, can track dozens of targets simultaneously, and was built with the assumption that any serious adversary would try to jam or spoof its guidance. Iran received its first operational S-300 systems in 2016 after a lengthy embargo and has spent years integrating them into a unified command network with overlapping coverage zones. On paper, it's a serious capability. Then there's the Bavar 373. Iran developed this platform domestically, positioning it as their answer to the U.S. Patriot system. Iranian military officials have claimed it can engage stealth aircraft and fast-moving cruise missiles. Independent verification of those claims is essentially impossible, but the engineering effort behind it is real, and the system has gone through multiple public test cycles. Whether it performs at its claimed ceiling in a contested environment against a real hypersonic target is a different question entirely. Beyond the missiles themselves, Iran runs an early warning radar network covering the Gulf approaches. Radar stations positioned across the southwestern coast and on islands in the Gulf give operators significant coverage of the maritime approaches, the same routes U.S. reconnaissance assets use regularly. Iranian operators have tracked American drones, monitored Israeli aircraft transiting the region, and logged cruise missile trajectories from multiple conflicts in the area. This is not a green crew running unfamiliar equipment. The people watching those screens have real operational experience. So why wasn't any of it enough? Air defense doesn't fail at one point, it fails across a chain. Detection, tracking, lock-on, and intercept are 4 separate steps, and every single one has to succeed for a missile to leave the rail with a valid solution. Miss any step or run out of time between them, and the sequence collapses. The S-300 and the Bavar 373 were both designed with threat models in mind. Specific speed ranges, altitude bands, and radar return profiles that their engineers used to tune the systems. Those threat models reflected real adversaries at the time of design. Mach 6 wasn't in the calculation because nothing flying at Mach 6 existed when these systems were being built. That's not a criticism of Iranian engineers. It's a problem every air defense program in the world shares. Now put that system up against the SR-72, and here's where the encounter gets interesting. By 2026, the Persian Gulf region had been running hot for months. Strikes, counterstrikes, maritime incidents, and proxy activity across multiple fronts had pushed U.S. reconnaissance operations into a higher tempo. Knowing what's happening inside Iran's military infrastructure, where assets are moving, what's being activated, what's being concealed, carries enormous operational value when you're managing that kind of environment. The SR-72 went in to get that picture. Iranian early warning radar picked up the contact somewhere over the Gulf. What the operators saw didn't match anything in their reference library. The return was intermittent, appearing, dropping out, reappearing, and the velocity reading was beyond the scale of conventional fast movers they'd seen before. Not a cruise missile, which would track predictably and slowly enough to solve. Not a conventional aircraft. Something else, moving through their coverage zone at a speed that gave the system almost no time to build a track. Here's what that looks like from the operator's side. When a radar contact appears, the fire control system starts building a track, logging successive positions to calculate heading, speed, and predicted future location. That prediction is what guides the missile. The more track data you have, the more accurate the prediction. Against a Mach 6 target crossing a radar engagement zone, you might get 1 or 2 position updates before the aircraft is already past the point where any intercept geometry is viable. The fire control computer needs time to solve the problem. At that speed, time is the one thing the system doesn't have. Iranian operators attempted to establish a fire control lock. The radar couldn't hold the track consistently enough to hand off a valid firing solution to the missile system. The contact was intermittent because the SR-72's radar cross-section is reduced, not invisible, but small enough that a high-speed target with a weak return becomes extremely difficult to track continuously. Stack that on top of the altitude factor, which puts the aircraft near or above the optimal engagement ceiling for ground-based systems, and the intercept problem goes from difficult to geometrically unsolvable. No missile left the rail, not because someone made a political decision to stand down, but because the conditions for a valid shot never materialized. The SR-72 completed its reconnaissance run, collected what it came for, and exited the area. What remained in Iranian radar logs was a contact that had appeared, refused to cooperate with any of the systems pointed at it, and disappeared before anyone could do anything about it. That's what happened. Here's why it was always going to go that way. The SR-71 flew operational missions for more than 2 decades without a single aircraft lost to enemy fire. Not once. Adversaries launched missiles at it. North Korea, North Vietnam, Libya, and none of them connected. The reason wasn't that those missiles lacked the range or the altitude. Some of them did have both. The reason was that by the time a launch was authorized, the Blackbird had already moved far enough that the intercept geometry had fallen apart. Human decision-making takes time. Radar operators have to confirm the contact. A commander has to authorize weapons release. The missile has to be brought to readiness. That chain, even when it runs fast, takes longer than a Mach 3+ aircraft needs to exit the danger zone. The SR-72 runs at twice that speed. The decision chain doesn't get faster just because the target does. So what was already a narrow window for the SR-71 becomes, against the SR-72, essentially theoretical. You'd need to predict where the aircraft is going to be, authorize a shot, and launch, all before the target has moved so far that your solution is worthless. In practice, that sequence can't complete in time against a Mach 6 platform with a reduced radar return at high altitude. This is what the phrase "speed as a weapon" actually describes. It's not about surviving a missile that gets launched at you. It's about making sure the launch never happens. because the conditions for a valid shot never exist long enough for anyone to pull the trigger. The threat neutralizes itself through physics before it ever becomes a real danger. The geopolitical dimension of that is deliberate. When the U.S. can send a reconnaissance platform into contested airspace, collect what it needs, and exit before any adversary finishes the engagement sequence, it changes the calculation for every country operating air defenses in the region. You can't deter something you can't stop, and you can't negotiate around a capability gap you don't know how to close. Iran's air defense operators did what they were trained to do. The equipment responded the way it was designed to respond. The failure wasn't human, it was structural, built into every assumption those systems were engineered around, years before the SR-72 existed. Speed at hypersonic levels doesn't just beat interceptors, it beats the people operating them, because humans can't compress their decision cycle fast enough to matter. Iran's attempt to lock on wasn't reckless, it was just physics working against them in every direction at once. No upgrade to the S-300 or the Bavar 373 closes that gap without solving a problem that no air defense program in the world has answered yet. On December 5, 2011, an American stealth drone went down over Iran. Iranian forces didn't fire a missile. They jammed its brain and tricked it into landing intact inside enemy territory. That aircraft was the RQ-170 Sentinel, built by Skunk Works. It was supposed to be invisible. 14 years later, Skunk Works has built something that makes the RQ-170 look like a toy. The RQ-170 wasn't a prototype, and it was already operational when it went down. Before the loss, the Central Intelligence Agency had used it over Pakistan during the raid that killed Osama bin Laden. It carried no weapons because its only payload was silence. Its designers built it to evade radar and other surveillance systems, and it had done so successfully for years before that December night. Iranian forces near Kashmir picked it up as it crossed into northeastern airspace, and they tracked it for miles before deciding to act. They didn't shoot it down, and instead they jammed its command link while spoofing its GPS coordinates. The drone believed it was landing at its home base, and it touched down on Iranian soil almost completely intact. State television broadcast images of the captured aircraft within days. The Iranians displayed it on television, and within months they were reverse engineering it. Within 3 years, Iran claimed to have test-flown a domestically built copy. The design features, the radar-absorbing materials, and the control architecture were all laid bare for engineers in Tehran. This was more than an intelligence victory. It was a demonstration of how patience, reverse engineering, and one captured airframe can dismantle an entire doctrine of low observable technology that the United States had spent decades refining. For Skunk Works, the loss was devastating. The RQ-170 represented years of classified engineering and operational testing. To see it sitting in a hangar under Iranian flags forced a question that would drive the next decade of black project development inside the most secretive division at Lockheed Martin. If a stealth drone could be detected and captured without a shot fired, then stealth itself needed to be redefined from the ground up. The capture exposed a truth the Pentagon had preferred to ignore. Stealth was never absolute. It was a set of design choices optimized for specific threats, and Iran had found the gaps between them. Electronic emissions, data link signatures, and thermal output were all vulnerabilities that radar cross-section alone couldn't address, no matter how advanced the shaping or the absorbing coatings had become. The Pentagon's response wasn't to abandon stealth, it was to expand it. Engineers realized that reducing radar visibility was no longer enough when an adversary could exploit every other signature the aircraft produced. The new challenge was to build a platform that disappeared across multiple detection methods simultaneously. This is where the concept of multispectral stealth enters the picture. Traditional stealth attacks the electromagnetic spectrum in the bands used by fire control radars, primarily X-band and Ku-band. That approach works against missile guidance systems, but it leaves other spectrums wide open. And those gaps are where the real danger lives. Iran had proven this in 2011. Their electronic warfare operators didn't need to break the RQ-170's radar evasion to bring it down. They attacked its brain instead. The lesson was stark. If you want to survive over contested airspace, you need to vanish from radar. from infrared sensors, from electronic surveillance, and from visual detection all at the same time. In September 2025, Lockheed Martin Skunk Works did something unusual. They unveiled a new stealth drone in public. The aircraft was called Vectis, a Group 5 collaborative combat aircraft designed to operate as an unmanned wingman alongside the F-35, the F-22, and future fighter programs. First flight is targeted for 2027, and the program is self-funded by Lockheed, which means the company is betting its own money on a market the Air Force hasn't yet fully committed to. O.J. Sanchez, the vice president and general manager of Skunk Works, made the announcement. He said the ability to reach this concept didn't happen overnight. That statement carries weight because Skunk Works doesn't typically reveal its black projects to the public. The F-117, the F-22, and the RQ-170 all emerged from secrecy only after they were already flying or operational. The public unveiling of Vectis raises an immediate question. If this is what they're willing to show, then something far more advanced remains hidden behind the curtain. Vectis is a tactical platform. It's designed for air-to-air combat support, sensor sharing, and loyal wingman duties. It isn't a deep penetration strategic reconnaissance asset, and it doesn't replace the need for a high-altitude, long-endurance drone that can loiter over denied territory for days without being detected. That gap is obvious, and it's a gap that Skunk Works has historically been hired to fill. In November 2023, more than a year and a half before Vectis was ever revealed, a defense industry podcast dropped a claim that rippled through the aviation press. Vago Muradian, the editor-in-chief and host of the Defense and Aerospace Report, stated that a classified Skunk Works reconnaissance aircraft had already been delivered to the United States Air Force. He described it as exceeding the RQ-180 in capability, referring to the rumored Northrop Grumman high-altitude stealth drone that has never been officially acknowledged. Muradian said the program had been rescoped, not canceled. The capability requirements were so ambitious that the design had to be revised before the next block of aircraft could move forward. This is the language of a program that already exists in hardware, not on a drawing board. The RQ-180, if real, is understood to be a replacement for the U-2 Dragon Lady and the retired RQ-4 Global Hawk. A Skunk Works competitor would need to outperform it by a wide margin to justify continued Air Force investment. The description fits a strategic intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance platform. Operating at high altitude with long endurance and extreme stealth is exactly what the Pentagon needs to monitor mobile missile launchers and underground facilities in denied airspace. If the reports are accurate, airframes already exist. The only question is what makes them so much more capable than anything that came before. Conventional stealth is radar-centric. Angled airframes, radar-absorbent coatings, and internal weapons bays all work together to scatter or trap the electromagnetic waves used by fire control radars in X-band and Ku-band. This is the stealth the world understands. It's the stealth that let the F-117 strike Baghdad in 1991 and the B-2 cross continents without detection. But it's also the stealth that the RQ-170 relied on, and it wasn't enough. Modern air defense doesn't rely solely on those bands. VHF and UHF radars use longer wavelengths that interact differently with stealth shaping. Where X-band waves bounce off carefully angled surfaces, longer waves can wrap around edges and create detectable returns. These systems can't guide missiles with precision on their own, but they can cue other sensors to the general location of a stealth aircraft. That's exactly the vulnerability Iran's layered network was built to exploit. Worse, infrared search and track systems don't use radar at all. They're passive sensors that detect the heat radiating from an aircraft's engines and exhaust. Every stealth drone in the American inventory produces a thermal signature that an IRST system can see from miles away. Multispectral stealth attacks all three problems at once. It reduces radar cross-section across multiple bands, suppresses infrared emissions through advanced engine design and exhaust cooling, and replaces vulnerable data links with low probability of intercept communications that can't be jammed or spoofed. Academic literature from 2025 and 2026 documents breakthroughs in dual-band radar and infrared stealth materials. The science is real. The question is whether Skunk Works has already deployed it. Iran's air defense is built around two major systems. The first is the Russian S-300 PMU-2, a long-range surface-to-air missile battery with advanced tracking radar and multiple engagement channels. The second is the indigenous Bavar 373, unveiled in 2019 and developed after years of studying foreign systems, including the one that fell into Iranian hands in 2011. Iran claims the Bavar 373 can detect and track fifth-generation stealth fighters at ranges up to 450 kilometers. No independent source has verified that claim. Beyond these long-range weapons, Iran has fielded the Cobra Phi-8 radar and other systems to create a dense, overlapping network around critical sites. The logic is simple. Even if a single radar can't lock onto a stealth target, the combined coverage of multiple bands and multiple platforms increases the chance that something will produce a return, a heat signature, or an electronic emission that gives the game away. Iran learned from the RQ-170. They learned that American stealth is formidable, but not perfect, and they have spent 14 years building a trap specifically designed to catch the next drone that crosses their border. The catch is that the next drone may not be using any kind of stealth they recognize. Now put the pieces together. A classified Skunk Works reconnaissance program has been reported as already delivered, with capability requirements so ambitious they forced a redesign. A publicly unveiled tactical drone leaves a glaring gap in strategic deep penetration surveillance, and a scientific foundation of dual-band radar and infrared stealth materials has been documented in peer-reviewed literature. The evidence points to one conclusion. Skunk Works has likely built a high-altitude, long-endurance platform that defeats Iran's layered network across every spectrum it uses. It would operate above the engagement ceiling of most surface-to-air missiles, with a radar cross-section reduced across VHF through X-band, an infrared signature suppressed below the threshold of IRST detection, and electronic emissions so minimal that jamming becomes nearly impossible. The March 2026 emergency landing of a secret American stealth drone at Larissa Air Base in Greece adds context. That aircraft was the rumored RQ-180, a Northrop Grumman platform, not a Skunk Works product, but its presence near contested airspace proves that classified hail stealth drones are already operating in the region. The United States isn't waiting for 2027. It needs persistent intelligence over Iran now, and the conflict raging through 2026 has made that need urgent. If the 2023 reports are accurate, Skunk Works has already delivered this aircraft to the Air Force. That means somewhere over the Middle East, right now, there may be a drone that Iran's billion-dollar air defense network can't see, can't track, and can't shoot down. The strategic impact is severe. Tehran has spent decades and billions building a wall, and the wall may be looking at empty sky. The era of single-spectrum stealth is ending. Tomorrow belongs to platforms that disappear across every detection method an adversary can build. Skunk Works has done this before. Back in 1991, the F-117 redefined night attack. The F-22 redefined air superiority. Even the RQ-170 proved that secret drones can be caught. Each time, Skunk Works learned, adapted, and pushed what invisible means. If the rumors are true, the next step is an aircraft that evades more than radar. It vanishes from infrared sensors, electronic surveillance, and low-frequency detection simultaneously. The consequences for Iran are severe. Billions spent on air defense, neutralized by an aircraft they can't see, can't hear, and can't track. The consequences for global air power are broader. Once multi-spectral stealth becomes operational, the balance of reconnaissance shifts permanently. When the adversary doesn't even know it's been watched, the strategic advantage becomes total. The answer may already be flying, and it didn't come from a factory line anyone has seen. Thanks for watching. While you're still here, click on the link appearing on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.